you're a research fellow at the Long Now Foundation and a senior research fellow in political science at the Foresight Institute. So maybe just talk about like what exactly is a research fellow? You know, what do you do? You know, kind of talk the audience in about what kind of, you know, publications or some type of like communication that you do, and then also even just how kind of the process goes, and then what you do with that, because it's a lot of, I think, theory to practice. It can be used very, very good for that, but then also I think a lot of things sometimes get stuck in that theory or academic kind of abstract mind and doesn't really make the connection. So maybe let's riff on that after you kind of set the stage.
Of course, of course. I mean, I view my life as pretty dedicated to this fundamental intellectual project of understanding our civilization, where it's going, and hopefully finding some ways to contribute to it, right? To contribute to these like big macro processes, right? Either through describing them accurately or through warning people or getting their attention onto topics that might be otherwise neglected. So having said that, I've oriented my career completely around that, right? And my consulting firm, Bismarck Analysis, it's there so that any research that I do into the nature of organizations, institutions that can be monetized is. But not everything can be monetized. For some things, the nonprofit world is the best, where you have a general interest rather than a specific interest. That's the place where you really want nonprofits to do a good job. Now, not all nonprofits are very research-oriented. Often they're sort of promotion-oriented. So I feel very fortunate to be associated with the Long Now Foundation and the Foresight Institute, because I believe they are both rare exceptions in that they are excellent intellectual environments where people truly care about the generation, the creation, not just the dissemination of new ways of thinking and, you know, new research in the world. The research fellowships themselves come with moderate amount of freedom. You basically have to, you know, explain what your research is about, write it up, publish it, exactly, publish it. Yeah, you know, it might be just published on literally the organization's website as a white paper, as a PDF, even on their blogs, right? You might apply to journals. In an interesting way, I think it is what academia used to be. I, in fact, much earlier in my life, considered an academic path. And, you know, talking to professors of economics, political science, and so on, I realized, oh my God, this is rather miserable, isn't it? You kind of have to do 10 or 15 years of drudgery before you just do the research. And when you do the research, you're tied to this strict publishing agenda, right? Please, you know, imagine the 19th century, the scientists of the 19th century, right? Where you could spend years between publications, and that was, say, a productive mathematical career or a career in biology. You know, Charles Darwin waited for like basically a decade, if I recall, before like sharing his conclusions. And today, that would just not be viable as an academic career. So the view is, organizations that have good enough taste in epistemic excellence and generativity, that have a mission that's properly aligned with discovering the truth. I think these are one of the best positions you can get intellectually. And I warmly recommend to people who have their own intellectual ambitions that they look at these, let's call them academic jobs outside of academia as the right platform for their research and for their thinking. Now, with the Long Now Foundation, I do research in the so-called Continuity Project, which is a look at some of the longest-lived organizations around the world and trying to bring in lessons from them. We can talk about that later. And for the Foresight Institute, it's mostly the application of political science-style insights to predicted technological developments. Right? What does the world look like if, you know, we have AGI? What is that as a political question? What does the world look like if, you know, say we had catastrophic lab leaks? Like, I'm sure that doesn't happen, you know, but what are the social and political consequences of technology? Because it's a very intricate feedback loop. If you try to project the future of technological development while you ignore the social and political aspect, you will just be wrong. The feedback loop goes pretty direct. It goes both through regulation, through funding, but also through the allocation of peak talent, right? One of the more interesting things that I think, say, Elon Musk did has been to make it cool to be an aerospace engineer again.
Right, I do see that. Okay, I see where you're going with that. Okay, so maybe, so what would be some of the things that are maybe on the cusp of becoming cool again? Is it, because Elon Musk, it seems maybe we're rocket engineers and stuff like that, I'm with it. But then the Long Now, it seems like they have a couple projects that seem pretty interesting. I think it's the Long Clock. Then even just, I want to go to their coffee shop and bookstore in San Francisco as well. But then also they have a very deep history. I'm blanking on his name, Stuart Brand.
Stuart
Right.
Brand.
So there's a deep history there with trying to look out for, like you said, an academia without being an academia. And that's what fellowships have been, something that I was definitely wanting to be researched in as a postgrads, et cetera.